So, we're doing something a bit unconventional today. I'm not one to typically record videos like this, prepare presentations of any sorts, but I figured I'd give it a chance. This spawned from a conversation earlier today where a friend of mine had posted a link about a new Friendslop game that comes out, and I've always toyed with the idea of making a Friendslop game, but I've never really had an idea that I felt was original, worthwhile enough that really kind of hit me and said, that hasn't been done before. That could really work. And sitting at a coffee shop nearby and just kind of jotting down notes for a game that I'm working on right now, I started to think about what really makes a Friendslop game a Friendslop game. So today we're going to be talking about a few things. First off, a little about me, and then going to be jumping into what a Friendslop game is. What do they really do differently from each other? Because I think that is kind of a very interesting topic as well. And then finally, knowing all of this information, how do we then take that and make a good Friendslop game? So, jumping straight into this, about me, who is this guy? Hi, I'm Josh. I am the founder of Big Fridge Studios. It feels weird to say founder. It feels like it's like kind of something more than it is. It's just me making games. I think ultimately, above all, I am not qualified at all to talk on any of this. This is just my own personal opinion that's often misguided, misinformed. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. So, really at its core, what a Friendslop game, as I view it, is first off something that is co-op oriented. A lot of these games are single player games, but they primarily are focused around co-op, and that you can play Peak or Leaf Company, solo, but that's not what it is at its core. It's something that you play with friends, and what you get out of it is the social interactions that come from playing that game. You don't remember a run of repo where you get super far, or that you remember those moments with your friend when he's yelling on the mic and doing something crazy. It really kind of is those moments that stick with you and kind of really get people to go out and play these games, and why we're seeing so many of them, because we love creating these memories with friends and that. And a lot of these games are really low cost to entry. I think all of these, if I'm not mistaken, are under $10 each. So that's an important thing if you're trying to convince multiple of your friends to get a copy of that. There needs to be a low barrier of entry, and all of these as of right now are very really indie games. They're not made by big studios, and that you can have similar experiences with other games that are AAA or that, but at its core they're not as socially focused as these games are. Feels like every month there's kind of a new one that's popular, that, or you see some crazy clips online of a new one that comes out, and everybody's kind of really taking their own twist on things, which is interesting. At its core, it's about the social aspect between friends, but there's a certain kind of flavor that's added to it. So for instance, the RV there, the whole focus is driving an RV. Repo, it's a lot physics based, and kind of the interactions with that, and kind of pulling loop back. Peak, of course, is climbing. There's just one thing that is the really core idea that draws you in, or the selling pitch to your friends of this is a game where we climb a mountain. Something that is in one or two sentences is the hook is immediately there. These games, if you're trying to get multiple friends to just buy on like a Friday night and try out, you need the kind of pitch there. Like Mage Arena, it's a game where you use your microphone to kind of cast spells, and that there's definitely a few games as of late that are utilizing the mic interaction more, which is very interesting. But at its core, this game has like the core idea, the core concept, core gameplay feature that drives the social interaction between players, gets them cooperating or versing each other, and creates those moments that are truly memorable. And that's where like the fun is. And that's an important thing for all these Friendslop games. So as for myself and where I want to take things with a potential Friendslop project, I think the core thing is to first get that hook, that core gameplay loop idea, and then figure out, how do I create those moments of fun interaction? What moments, when looking back after playing the game, you will kind of remember in that. And I think that there is a lot to learn and a lot to pull from these different games that I want to make into something myself, my own kind of unique project, unique idea that truly kind of stands out on its own. In terms of the idea itself, this is of course very nebulous. This isn't something concrete, and it's more of an idea of sorts. But I've always been intrigued by the idea of the journey. Something I like about Peak, or even Lethal Company or Repo, is you have the destination. You're going somewhere, traversing through obstacles and that, and you're either going there and back, or trying to reach the end goal of climbing the mountain. There's the journey there, and a lot of obstacles and things along the way. So I think it would be cool to have a game that's very focused on that, on exploration and kind of the interactions with that. I had this idea where a player can have like a physical like map that they're pulling out to like reference or that, and maybe the players are fighting over that, and they're having to go through puzzles or enemies, or maybe there's like mini games that they have to play. I want to build something that at its core there's a journey, final destination, an end goal that the players are always striving towards. But what is memorable is those little moments along the way, having the rest and like sitting by the campfire, while maybe like one friend has to kind of go AFK for a moment or something like that, and everybody else is just chilling. Or having to all cooperate in some manner, like you're all piloting a vehicle, or trying to figure out a puzzle together. There's a lot of moments that you can create that really drive those interactions, and I think that at its core is like what makes a good Friendslop game. You have a gameplay loop that really focuses in on those player interactions, and that's what I want to make. So the idea is really nebulous of sorts. There's a few kind of tattered pieces that are kind of pulled from a bunch of different games, but I think from that you can create something that stands out by itself and is unique. Always able to learn from different games and kind of the design decisions that are behind them, and you don't have to take the whole package. You can take one thing from one game and kind of mesh with another. So I think there's a lot of potential here to kind of study different Friendslop games, as we call it, and identify like what makes this one work. What can we take from this and maybe put a twist on it, or make it different, make those fun, memorable moments. And I think that's going to be something that is really exciting to work on. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for sitting here through my talk. Creating things is fun. I've found that out, and I love the process. I love learning, and I think that there is something here that is special, that different game designers can look at and learn from and apply to their own projects. So yeah, thanks.